Hello everybody. This is the first of a series of short videos that I'm producing to kind of catch you up and to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I demonstrated in class, on our first class on a Saturday. And what you see before you is a data set that is close to the one that we pulled out of REDCap. I have de-identified the database, meaning I've taken out all of the student names. I've added in this new column called in column C called student ID number, where I know what names these numbers correspond to. So as I said on Saturday, if you need me to tell you which data are yours, I can by looking at another data file that I have that matches these numbers to student names. So we started by taking a look at the assessment itself and how it's structured. And what we saw was that the assessment is comprised of 58 items. And those 58 items comprise 10 scales or constructs. And on the Blackboard site I've posted a Word document that lists those 10 scales and the items that go towards that scale. The first of which is called setting direction, and their items 1 through 8 on the assessment are about setting direction. And if you remember, if you take a look at the survey itself, which is also on the Blackboard site, you'll see that for each of the 58 items, the respondent was asked which pieces of evidence they would use to make a determination on the rating for that particular item. And so the data set is set up so that it has, for each item, it has variables about the evidence question as well as a single variable for the rating scale. And so if you look, for example, at columns D through I, those are 6 items that go towards a single question, meaning that was the single question that was asked of the respondent was, which evidence would you have consulted to make this determination? And that's coded as 0 and 1. So anytime they checked off any of the pieces of evidence, it was coded as a 1. So for example, in row 2 here, we see that for items in columns D through I, that person only said the second form of evidence is the only one they consulted. Whereas in this third row, that person said they consulted the first, second, and third pieces of evidence to make this particular determination, or the rating on a scale of highly ineffective to extremely effective. That rating scale for the first item in setting direction is here in column J. The second item for setting direction is here in column Q. So setting direction 1A, setting direction 2A, that's how they're named in this case. And in between each of the 58 items there are 6 columns, which are just the evidence columns. And what I suggested was that we may at some point be interested in what sorts of evidence people use to make these ratings, but for now we're not interested in those, and so we want to be able to get rid of those columns so that we have a fairly clean data set to work with. The analyses that we're going to do, or that you're likely to do, could be done with a data set like this, but my counsel to you is to try and make as clean and as clear a data set as possible to work from. So what I suggested doing was to get rid of all of the columns that are about the evidence that the respondent used. And what I said was, Excel has lots of great functions you can use to carry out tasks automatically and efficiently, but sometimes you just have to rely on brute force, and so that's what I did. And so I literally would highlight each of the rows before the rating scale and just delete it. So I would highlight the rows, and then I would say delete sheet columns, and that's it. And then I would go and delete for question 2A, question 2, or item 2, I would delete those 6 columns again. And then for item 3, I would delete those 6 columns again. And I went on and I did this for each of the 58 items. So I'm not going to record doing that here. What I will just say is that the idea is to end up with, starting with column D, with 58 columns after, of the ratings that are only of the rating scales. And so in the next video you'll see me working with that data set.